As you all know, Indiana Jones is one of Hollywood's most lovable grave robbers. But based on the science behind some of his movies, the next grave he should be in is probably his own.
We'd like to preface this presentation by briefly talking about Indiana Jones's medical background. He's now at 64 years old, and that puts him at some significant health risks, such as osteoarthritis. Combined with his high-risk lifestyle, we think it's not looking good for his body. Pre-existing conditions may include a torn ACL from Raiders of the Lost Ark, as well as skull juice poisoning from the Temple of Doom. It's also important to note that the FDA does not currently recognize drinking from the Holy Grail to be an effective medical treatment.
All right, so we also see him getting thrown across multiple feet or multiple meters inside of a fridge. We really don't know what kind of support there was inside a fridge in the 1950s. I'm assuming that the lead-lined encasing that he was in probably would have gotten pretty damaged in such high acceleration, especially upon impact, and we don't see much of that inside the fridge. Also, he would have been subjected to huge amounts of force. His neck probably would have snapped, causing him some sort of paralysis, depending on where in his spine he was hurt. We also would have seen a lot of probably broken ribs and other additional injuries that would have impacted his internal organs and especially his respiratory system. So he might as well have honestly climbed inside a blender rather than a fridge, because it would have caused the same amount of injury.
So to talk a little bit more about the seriousness of the injuries that he should be facing, which we don't really see, but he should be facing, given that the refrigerator was, projected God knows how high into the air, and it's very rough landing, the effects would have been similar to that of a rollover crash. In a study of rollover crashes, 89% of the occupants suffered from serious injuries to their head, face, and neck. And while we know he's gorgeous, something should have happened. 70.3% of people also suffered from spinal cord injuries in rollover crashes, and this damage would have rendered him unable to walk away. And although these studies did not explicitly state that the subjects were not located inside of a refrigerator, but instead inside of a car undergoing the accident, it's safe to assume they had at least slightly better safety standards, such as a seatbelt or airbags, and he should not be able to walk.
Even assuming that the fridge was airtight, after leaving, he would still be subject to radiation poisoning, and at the very least would be suffering symptoms such as weakness and fatigue, which would be visible on his body. However, none of them are shown for the rest of the movie. Seeing as he would likely die within 30 days, yet there is still a fifth film in development, we find these results somewhat inaccurate. Now, let's talk about what's really important rather than his safety, which is the validity of the nuclear test results. Now, these test dummies do not meet the biomechanical testing standards, as in the time period, it would be more appropriate to use real human cadavers, as their materials are much similar to that of real humans, being identical. And this would also cause serious ethical violations, as the testing zone was not properly cleared and checked, resulting in the death of 3 people.
So, long story short, he should not have survived this at all. In fact, he should no longer be Indiana Jones, but rather Indiana Bones.